It was a cold, gray morning in the dense Appalachian forest. Mist lay heavy on the ground like a blanket nobody wanted to shake off, and the world felt utterly silent except for the distant call of crows. But among the skeletal trees, something stirred, small, limping, and lost. A puppy, no older than 6 months, dragging an injured leg, shivered in the cold. He was thin enough that every rib pressed against his matted fur. A trail of blood marked his path, a bright, accusing red against fallen leaves. But even in his pain, he seemed determined, nose low to the ground, sniffing, as though searching for something he couldn't quite name. That's when he heard it. A sound that was not the crows, not the wind, a weak, broken cry. He froze. Ears perked. It came again, this time a desperate bleat that twisted his heart in the rawest way. Despite the agony in his leg, he limped toward the sound. And there, through the curtain of fog, he saw her, a tiny fawn, barely able to hold her head up. Her breathing was ragged, sides heaving with effort, dark eyes dull with approaching death. The puppy paused, lowering himself carefully, sensing her fear. She was alone, no sign of her mother, only tracks in the mud, stained with blood and leading away. It didn't take long for him to smell what must have happened. The scent of coyotes hung in the air. He growled weakly, protected despite having no one protect in all his short life. Until now, he limped closer. The fawn tried to jerk away, but lacked the strength. He whined softly, pressing his nose gently to her side. She flinched, but did not run. They were both too broken to do much else. As dawn slowly brightened, the forest seemed to watch them. Two abandoned creatures refusing to leave each other. And though neither understood the other's pain exactly, they shared all the same. But danger always lurks where blood is spilled. Unbeknownst to them, a pair of eyes glittered in the underbrush, low to the ground. Watching, waiting, the puppy's ears twitched, picking up the soft rustled leaves. He growled again, but his voice cracked, pitiful and raw. He forced himself to stand in front of Fawn, trembling with effort. The rustle fell silent. The forest seemed to hold its breath. No attack came. Eventually, the predator slipped away, deterred by the puppy's miserable yet unbroken courage. Hours passed like this. The puppy licked the fawn's face, cleaned the blood on her tiny leg as best he could. He curled against her shivering form to share what little warmth he had. By afternoon, the sun broke through in shafts of golden light, making the fog glow like something out of a dream. But to the puppy, it was a nightmare he couldn't wake from. He remembered hunger gnawing at his stomach, remembered his own mother, her body lying still on the road after the roar of an engine he didn't understand. He'd run for days after that, limping from a shattered leg that never healed right. And now he was here, trying to save something else he didn't want to lose. He lay his head on the fawn's neck, listening to her labored breathing, feeling it slow. For a moment he panicked. He nudged her hard enough to wake her, and her eyes fluttered open, just barely. Relief flooded him. He whined with a tone that almost sounded like pleading. "Stay. Please stay." But she couldn't answer. The light faded again, and the cold returned. Coyotes howled in the distance. The puppy forced himself not to tremble too hard, determined not to move from her side. He closed his eyes. For the first time in days, he was not alone. And somewhere in the trees, a figure watched, a park ranger on her rounds, binoculars in hand, frozen by the sight she saw. Two wounded animals, refusing to abandon each other. She lifted her radio to her mouth. "Dispatch! I think you need to hear this." Her voice cracked with emotion, but before she could speak another word, the coyote howl came closer, and the puppy's ears shot up. He bared his teeth, ready to fight for a life that wasn't even his own. The howl was closer now, a haunting sound cutting through the stillness like a sharp blade. The puppy's breath came fast and shallow, every muscle trembling, but he refused to back down. He stood taller, fragile though he was, and growled a fierce warning into the cold forest air. The fawn, barely conscious, shivered beneath him, her fragile body curling instinctively toward the only warmth she had left. The puppy's injured leg dragged painfully behind, but his resolve was unwavering. This was no longer about survival alone. It was about something deeper, an unspoken bond born in the shadows of death. From the thick underbrush, a pack of coyotes emerged, their eyes glowing amber in the dappled sunlight. They were lean and hungry, shadows slipping effortlessly between the trees. Their leader, a large, scarred male, stepped forward, his gaze locking onto the trembling duo. The puppy's growl deepened, a sound raw with desperation and courage. Despite his weakness, he positioned himself between the fawn and the approaching threat, his small frame a fragile shield against predators far stronger and faster. The coyote circled slowly, sensing weakness. The fawn tried to stand, her legs buckling beneath her. The puppy licked her face, a silent plea for her to hold on. Just then, a sudden sharp crack echoed through the forest. A whistle, another crack. The coyotes froze. Their ears flicked back and their bodies tensed. From the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged, tall, determined, and armed with nothing but courage and a flare of hope. It was a park ranger, her eyes wide with disbelief as she took in the scene before her. Without hesitation, she raised her voice, shouting commands that shattered the eerie silence. The coyotes hesitated, then scattered into the shadows, unwilling to challenge a human protector. The puppy collapsed, panting and exhausted, but still alert. The fawn, sensing the danger had passed, closed her eyes and sank deeper into exhaustion. The ranger rushed forward, her heart pounding. She knelt beside the fragile creatures, her hands gentle as she examined the puppy's wounded leg. The injury was old, infected, and painful, but with immediate care, she knew he could heal. Then her gaze shifted to Fawn. The poor animal was weak, her breathing shallow and uneven. The ranger's chest tightened with a mix of sadness and hope. Somehow, against all odds, these two had found each other in the darkest hour. Carefully, she lifted the fawn into her arms, cradling her with a tenderness that seemed to breathe life back into the fragile creature. The puppy followed, limping but determined, as she carried them both toward safety. In the warmth of the ranger's vehicle, the fawn rested quietly, her fragile chest rising and falling with steady breaths. The puppy lay beside her, eyes watchful, ever vigilant despite his pain. The journey to the Wildlife Rescue Center was long and quiet, filled with the weight of uncertainty. But through it all, an unspoken promise lingered, one of survival, companionship, and the healing power of unlikely friendship. The rescue center was a sanctuary for broken creatures, and as the puppy and fawn were gently tended to, the staff marveled at the bond they shared. It was rare, almost unheard of, for two such different animals to find comfort in each other's presence during the darkest moments of their lives. Days turned into weeks. The puppy's legs slowly mended under expert care, his spirit brightening with each passing day. The fawn, once frail and fading, grew stronger too, her eyes regaining their gentle spark. Throughout their recovery, they remained inseparable, companions bound not by blood, but by survival and the kind of loyalty that transcends species. The story of the wounded puppy and the dying fawn spread beyond the forest, touching the hearts of many who heard it. It became a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the bleakest moments, kindness and courage can create miracles. But as the seasons changed, a new question lingered in the air. What would happen when the time came for them to leave the safety of the rescue center? Would their fragile friendship endure in the wild where dangers lurked and survival was never guaranteed? The answer was yet to be written, and the forest was waiting. Weeks passed in the quiet refuge of the rescue center, a place humming with the gentle sounds of healing and hope. The puppy, once frail and limping, now moved with cautious confidence, though his injured leg reminded him of the hardships he'd endured. The fawn, too, had blossomed from a fragile state, standing taller each day, her large eyes reflecting the light of recovery, and something deeper, a bond forged in shared struggle. But as spring's first warm breezes swept through the trees, a question grew heavier in the hearts of the rescuers. It was time for them to return to the wild. For animals, the wild is home, a place of freedom and instinct, but it is also unpredictable, often cruel. The puppy, who had never known the safety of a true family, and the fawn, separated from her mother by tragedy, faced the greatest test yet. The morning they were to leave dawned crisp and bright. The puppy and fawn stood side by side, their eyes locked in silent understanding. They knew the forest awaited, a vast expanse of unknowns. As the ranger opened the gate to the wooded enclosure where they would be released, the air seemed charged with anticipation. The puppy hesitated, his injured leg aching beneath him. The fawn nudged him gently, encouraging him to step forward. Together, they stepped into the forest's embrace. At first, the wild seemed like a dream. Sunlight dappling the leaves, birds singing songs of welcome, the scent of earth and growing things everywhere. But beneath the beauty lurked the shadows of danger, and the past was never far behind. The puppy's ears twitched at every crack and rustle. The fawn moved cautiously, muscles tense beneath her sleek coat. They kept close, an unspoken pact to protect each other. One afternoon, as they crossed a shallow stream, a sudden rustle in the bushes froze them both. Eyes gleaming from the undergrowth belonged to a pack of coyotes, the same relentless hunters that had stalked them before. The puppy growled low, his body trembling but his spirit unbroken. The fawn backed up, her legs shaking. The coyotes advanced with slow, calculated steps, hunger evident in their gaze. For a moment, it seemed the cycle of fear would repeat. But then, something extraordinary happened. The puppy, despite his still healing leg, charged forward, barking fiercely. His small frame bristled with defiance. The coyotes paused, surprised by the audacity of this lone pup standing his ground. Suddenly, the fawn joined him, rushing beside the puppy with unexpected boldness. Their combined courage created a force stronger than their fragile bodies suggested. Startled, the coyotes retreated, disappearing into the forest shadows. Breathing heavily, the puppy and fawn shared a glance. Equal parts relief and newfound strength. Together, they had survived another trial, proving that even the smallest hearts can hold the greatest bravery. Days turned into weeks. The duo learned the rhythms of the wild, where to find clean water, which plants to avoid, how to sense danger before it arrived. The puppy's leg healed almost completely, and his muscles grew stronger. The fawn's legs, once weak, now carried her swiftly through the underbrush. But the forest held secrets yet to be revealed. One night, as the moon cast silver light through the canopy, the puppy sensed something different, an unusual silence, a stillness that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. He barked softly to the fawn, who perked up immediately. Together, they crept toward the source of the silence, guided by instincts honed by months of survival. In a small clearing bathed in moonlight, they discovered a scene that stopped them cold. A trap, cruel and cold, set by humans who didn't understand the delicate balance of the forest. Inside the trap was another creature, a young deer, frightened and trapped, its eyes wide with terror. The puppy growled, pacing anxiously, while Fawn gently nuzzled the frightened animal, offering what comfort she could. They were faced with a choice: leave the deer to its fate or risk everything to help a stranger in need. For these two unlikely friends, the answer was clear. But how could they free the trapped deer without risking their own safety? The forest seemed to hold its breath once again, waiting to see what these small, brave souls would do next. The moonlight cast long shadows across the forest floor, painting the trapped deer's eyes with shimmering, desperate glow. The puppy circled the cruel metal cage, sniffing cautiously. His leg ached from months of healing, but the pain was forgotten as his heart pounded fiercely with a need to protect. The fawn stood close, trembling, yet steady in her gaze. The trapped deer, young and frightened, shook with every breath. The cold metal bars cut deep into its soft fur, an unyielding barrier between freedom and captivity. The forest around them was silent, except for the distant call of an owl and the puppy's steady panting. The puppy nudged the cage's latch with his nose, but it wouldn't budge. The fawn pawed at the ground helplessly, eyes wide with worry. Neither had the strength or the knowledge to open the trap, yet abandoning the deer was impossible. Suddenly, the puppy's ears twitched. Somewhere, faint but clear, came the crunch of leaves under hurried footsteps. Human footsteps. Someone was coming back to check the trap. Panic surged through the puppy's veins, but he stood firm, barking softly to warn the fawn. She pressed her body against the trapped deer, shielding it as best she could. As the footsteps grew louder, a figure emerged from the darkness. A man in forest green, carrying a flashlight and a large net. His eyes scanned the area, landing on the puppy and Fawn with surprise. "What are you two doing here?" he muttered, crouching near the trap. His voice was rough, but not unkind. The puppy growled low, not trusting the stranger, but desperate for help. The man worked quickly, his hand steady as he released a latch. The trap door creaked open, and the deer stumbled free, collapsing in a heap on the soft earth. The puppy's tail wagged cautiously as the man inspected the deer. The Fawn nuzzled the freed animal gently, relief washing over her features. "I'll take you both to the sanctuary," the man said quietly. "You're lucky I came when I did." As the man lifted the deer into a makeshift stretcher, the puppy limped closer, nudging his hand. The Fawn stayed close, silent but watchful. The night air was crisp as the trio made their way back toward the rescue center. The forest around them seemed less ominous now, filled instead with quiet hope. Back at the sanctuary, the deer was given food and warmth. The puppy and Fawn settled beside each other, exhausted but calm. Days passed, and the three became an inseparable trio, their bond forged in a fire of shared struggle and compassion. The puppy's leg grew stronger, the Fawn's coat gleamed in the sun, and the deer slowly regained strength. But the forest mysteries weren't finished with them yet. One morning, as the sun spilled golden light across the treetops, the puppy felt a strange sensation, a pull toward something hidden deep in the woods. He barked insistently, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The Fawn and deer followed, curiosity mingled with caution. Together, they ventured deeper than ever before, into a part of the forest untouched by humans and filled with ancient secrets. The air grew thick with the scent of moss and earth, and the canopy above wove a tapestry of green and gold. Suddenly, the puppy stopped. Ahead lay a small clearing, where the remnant of an old campfire smoldered faintly, and scattered among the ashes were strange symbols carved into bark of surrounding trees. The three animals exchanged uncertain glances. What had once been a place of warmth and safety now held an eerie, unfamiliar power. As they stepped closer, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, and a whisper wind carried a voice, soft but clear, through the trees. Guardians, the bond of life, protectors of the lost. The puppy's ears flattened as he looked at Fawn, who seemed to understand in a way that words could not express. Their journey was far from over. The forest held more than danger, it held destiny. And the bond between the injured puppy, the brave Fawn, and the rescued deer was about to change everything. The whispered words hung in the air like a secret only the forest knew. The clearing, once forgotten and overgrown, seemed alive with ancient magic. The puppy, Fawn, and deer stood silently, as if understanding that their story was part of something much bigger, a destiny woven through time and nature itself. Days passed since that mysterious encounter, and life settled into a new rhythm. The trio roamed the forest together, their bond stronger than ever, a living testament to resilience and hope. But the puppy, once alone and broken, felt a stir inside, a pull toward the unseen threads connecting all creatures. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold, the trio reached a secluded glade. Here, the air was still and sacred, filled with a hum of life and memory. The puppy, limping slightly but proud, looked around with wide eyes. Suddenly, the earth beneath them seemed to pulse gently, a heartbeat in tune with their own. The Fawn stepped forward, her eyes shining with quiet understanding, and the deer nuzzled the puppy affectionately. At that moment, the forest seemed to embrace them fully, not as outcasts, but as its chosen guardians. Their struggles, their survival, and their unlikely friendship had earned them a place in the heart of the wilderness. From then on, the puppy, the Fawn, and the deer became legends whispered among the trees and sung by the wind. They protected the fragile balance of the forest, watching over lost and wounded creatures with fierce yet gentle loyalty. Visitors to the woods sometimes spoke of seeing a small puppy and a graceful Fawn moving together through the shadows, a pair so inseparable it seemed they shared one soul. Some said the deer was always nearby, a silent sentinel of peace. And though no one ever truly understood the depth of their bond, those who glimpsed them felt profound hope that even in a world full of pain and loss, kindness and courage could create miracles. The puppy who once limped alone and the fawn who faced death with quiet bravery had found not only each other but a purpose beyond survival, a life filled with love, loyalty, and the power to inspire. Their story reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected friendships are the ones that heal the deepest wounds, and that when we choose to stay by someone's side, even in their darkest moments, we become part of something greater than ourselves. As the moon rose high and stars glittered like scattered diamonds, the forest whispered its blessing, for in the heart of the wild, love and courage will always find a way.